When I was 30, I sat at my parents' kitchen table. Have a seat with me. I remember saying to my mom and my dad, I don't know how much longer I want to be alive. And the reason I said those impossible words to my parents is because I had just survived cancer for the second time in my 20s. Let me take a minute and go back. This is my beginning. Growing up, my father had an expression that he repeated to my brother and I anytime that we doubted ourselves. The difficult we do immediately. The impossible just takes us a little longer. I grew up living my father's motto that if I believed in myself, impossible things just took us a little longer. And so in my 20s, I thought I had accomplished a pretty cool, impossible thing. I won the New York State Natural Bodybuilding title. Thank you. My friend Matthew would tell me that I'm not good enough at Photoshop to make that up. That was more than a title to me. It was my identity. It is what I thought being a man was supposed to look like. After winning, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. And a few years later, I was diagnosed with a different form of testicular cancer. I remember at that point in my life being in so much pain that I threw out and deleted every picture I had of myself because I couldn't stand to look at where I was at that moment in my life. And a little while ago, I called up my brother-in-law, Bart. He has 3 beautiful sons, and he's the family curator of photos. And I said, hey, Bart, we took a trip together after I finished radiation therapy. And I remember we took a canoe trip down a little waterway in western Michigan. And there's a picture of me standing on the side of the river. And I look awful. I look just awful. And Bart very diligently opened up his files and neatly organized. And he said, Dave, I don't see this picture of you looking as awful as you think or you describe, but I'm just going to send all of them to you and maybe you can find it. And he did. I remember opening it thinking that doesn't in any way capture where I was at that moment in my life. And by looking at that photo, I actually felt like I was sort of betraying the memory of where I was because it just didn't represent what that experience was like for me. The things that I want to share with you right now are actually too embarrassing for me to say, and they're too painful for me to think. So I'm going to come back to them in a minute. Not long after that, I found a community. I met a community of fellow young adult cancer survivors and caregivers. It changed my life to be around people who understood what my experience was like and could relate to what I was going through. And over the last 5 years, together, we have created the first healthcare company in the world started and run by the young adult cancer community. Thank you. In addition to being a young adult cancer survivor, I am also a patient experience researcher. Experience in health is different than almost any other aspect of our life. If you think about the experience of buying your first house, for example, you probably think about how much you want to spend, what you want it to look like, maybe how close or how far you want to live from certain people. In health, our experience is what happens when life betrays our expectation. In health, experience is what happens when life betrays what we expected. For that reason, I'm very proud to share with you our company. We spell our name with a Y because there is no I in grit. It is a team sport. Thank you. Every member of Team Grit has a profound story of how their health or a diagnosis interrupted what they expected to happen in life. One of the young women with grit is a PhD in pharmacology, and she is also one of the leading researchers in the world in her own diagnosis, which is pretty cool. Together, we have spent the last 5 years creating a free app for people around the world to be able to live their shared experiences, to be able to connect with others in similar experiences. And so at the same time, a 31-year-old woman who was just diagnosed with stage 3 APL leukemia is connected to another 31-year-old woman who was just diagnosed with stage 3 APL leukemia. At the same time, a 55-year-old man whose wife is in treatment for stage 2 breast cancer is connected to another 55-year-old man whose wife is in treatment for stage 2 breast cancer. We call our free app, ready for it? Stupid Cancer. Thank you. And by connecting people around these shared experiences, there are now people in all 50 states and across 65 countries who are connecting with somebody who understands just what they're going through. Thank you. A few weeks ago, I talked to a friend that I met on the app, and being able to share with him where I was, he shared with me how he was at the same dark place that I was after my second time surviving cancer. And the things that I wasn't able to tell people, that losing my ability to have biological children, that losing the body parts that I thought defined what it meant to be a man, and this is the most embarrassing, I'm sorry, that losing my ability to perform sexually made me question if I was still a man at all. And by allowing us to live in these spaces that are often too painful to think or to say, we're allowed to move forward in our life and actually be a part of what we're doing as individuals. As a researcher, this graph shows me a lot of things. It shows me the 500,000 connections that have happened in the last 7 months on the Stupid Cancer app. It gives me hints about when people are connecting and at what levels. But as a survivor, I see miracles. I see people connecting and sharing things that maybe elsewhere in their life they wouldn't have the ability to. Something happened this year in healthcare that has changed the future for all of us. For the first time, the FDA has now required a drug company to submit patient experience data along with a new application. What that means is that biology is no longer enough. Our experience as individuals is a part of how new treatments will be developed and approved. After surviving cancer for the second time, I was referred to an endocrinologist to start my hormone therapy. When I walked in the door, I noticed that everybody else in the waiting room was in their 70s. And through conversations, through my numerous visits, talking to people, I realized that most of them, or many of them, were there for things like prostate cancer. And I spent a year with a doctor who treated me the same as everybody else in his waiting room. I don't blame him, it's what he knew, but my experience was something very different. I will spend the rest of my life making sure that as individuals, our experience is a part of our care. It is our way to contribute, and it is our way to manage our care. The early evidence shows that not only is this important to us as individuals, it also improves outcomes. It gives the medical team the ability to respond to our individual needs, and it gives us the ability to contribute in a meaningful way. We, each one of us, are the experts in our care. Nobody knows our life better than us as individuals. And my ask to you is to please never lose track of our humanity. It is the real, it is the raw, it is the messy, and it is the beautiful part of what makes us who we are. After spending my life living my Father's words, the difficult we do immediately, the impossible just takes us a little longer. What I've come to learn is that treating disease can be really difficult, but living can feel sometimes impossible. And I'll share with you the words that someone on the platform spoke last month before she threw out the opening pitch at the Colorado Rockies game in Denver. Ellis says, "Life isn't about surviving, it's about living." Thank you.